I'm very interested in spirituality. I've been developing that over my lifetime, really, and I find that people don't always understand spirituality because they understand religion, but we don't really have very good words for explaining spirituality, so I'm always interested in articulating that and trying to explain it, and I'd be interested in people having a greater understanding of what spirituality means as opposed to religion.
I guess for me, I think spirituality is a topic that, for me, I guess, and everything I say is my opinion, so not kind of putting it on other people, but I feel like social work is still on its way to understanding the realm of spirituality. I think if I look at Māori practice models or ways of working, or I look at Indigenous people's ways of working, often they will take on board a lot of that spiritual aspect and component, and yet as social workers, and for me as a white middle-class social worker, I think there's a lot of that missing, that understanding of spirituality and what it is. And I think for me, the reason I wanted to be involved is I think it's something that's really important, and there isn't enough, particularly from the New Zealand context, in terms of what that means for social workers. I think people can be made to feel like you need to leave that at the door, that can't come with you, whereas actually spirituality is part of making who you are, and I think it's about how you appropriately use self in terms of working with people. But I just think the opportunity to do that, and hopefully for the students that I teach, being able to kind of have a resource for them too, could be really helpful.
My first reaction was, what a nice light way to consider social work and what we bring into that work, and I thought it was something that I hadn't really considered, how my spirituality is embedded in my practice. So I was interested to be part of it because I wanted to explore it for myself, but also I wanted to give some of that out and find out how others viewed their spirituality and how we looked as a collective when that information came together. So I thought, what an interesting piece of research compared to examining social change or government systems, to actually look at us as women and to look at how that is woven into our work.
Well, I guess it's just, an opportunity to continue to want to, explore the topic really, because it's something that, I've been a part of, I suppose, all of my life, even though I mightn't have always been aware of it. But, certainly I've been very involved in sort of women's spirituality groups and did my own sort of thesis on people's experiences and expressions of spirituality and supervision. So I'm just very interested in the whole topic and how we bring all of ourselves to what we do and how that's great and okay, how it can be celebrated, so.
I'm seeing that through this women will find themselves and their own essence and what and who they are and how it enables them to their work, even if in their personal life, professional life, it will be a good big impact on them through this journey.
I have gone further out now than the infant day I forsook. the feather water of the womb. My wet skull snailing through the skin tube. Its elastic tight blinds every feature of my face. I fall over a sudden edge. Into the open, vacant light. I dangle for a while. From the skin tube, like a bait. Until gravity swallows me and seals me in my skin shape. Since then, something within me strains through the closed pores to get its echo out. But becomes dumb again. When it hears their foreign voices, mangle outside what is tender within. But now I open like a swift breeze, over a meadow of clover. Seamless light and free, helplessly everything in me rushes together. Towards the dark light of your eyes.
Okay, so I guess if I start almost with a mihi, is I come from, I was born in New Zealand, but I come from a Scottish and Irish, and English and Jewish background, and I guess they're a huge part of who I am. I grew up actually in Papua New Guinea as a missionary kid, and that's where I consider my tūranga waiwai. So when I came back to New Zealand, I found like I didn't belong here well. I had a weird accent, although my skin was the same colour as a lot of people, I didn't fit in. And so I kind of really clung to my heritage and where I'm from.
I was born in Wellington. A generation back, my family came to New Zealand. I have lived here in Tauranga for 20 years as a settled person. So I consider myself to be a New Zealander that's travelled around this country a little bit now. I seem to have found my roots here in Te Puna. It's a place I feel like I belong.
Yeah, I think those kind of the Scottish roots and the Jewish roots and the English roots are really important, as well as my land, my feet stand in Papua New Guinea. I love New Zealand though, don't get me wrong. But that's kind of where I originally came from. It has had a huge impact on my life. And then, I worked as a teacher, started as a social worker, and kind of, found my calling in social work. And now I'm actually an educator, a social work educator. So it's kind of, I believe that my path has kind of had a divine hand really, in terms of using my skills and abilities and compassion and hope for people in terms of what I do, and now training others to do the same thing.
For myself, I feel I've settled in the Wairau Valley. I feel like I belong on this earth with views out over Mauau, the river that runs down beside me, and a sense that this is where my children have grown up, and a sense that where I feel like I've made some roots and actually made a place that I'm prepared to stay and be and give back to, as well as feel settled on.
I'm from India, western part of India, and I came here in 2002, and I have a business in Tauranga, and I'm also working with Shakti Ethnic Women Support Group, who deals with domestic violence among Asian, Middle Eastern, African, Indian and Fiji Indian. And I'm really enjoying this journey with Shakti, and I'm enjoying this place, New Zealand, as well.
I spent the majority of my childhood, and I'd say from 0 to 15 between two places. One is Patea in Taranaki and the other is Ratanapa. And my mother and my father is, he's Ngārauru, and we were predominantly brought up on a marae called Waioturi, and we belong to Rangatapi Hapu. My mother, her father and mother, they were from Ngāti Tūpare Toa, was my nanny, and her name was Piki also. And my koro, he was from a place called Ihupuku, which is in the Waitotara Valley.
So I guess for me, I've had a lot of experience in terms of, I think, in social work, a lot of people who've been put to the side, or people who have felt judged by themselves, but also by those around them. And often what I've experienced in my training and my work is that if you have a label to your face, sometimes it can be really hard for people because their only understanding of that particular label is their own experiences. And I kind of felt like, I have felt like in my journey that label is almost, it's a wrong thing to have that kind of spiritual aspect, particularly in terms of a Christian aspect, that it's not the right kind of thing to have because of all of the negative kind of media portrayal and stuff of people with that particular label. And I think for me, it's been a journey, and I think a continual journey in learning of what does that mean for me as well. As someone who professes a Christ-following faith, what does that mean in terms of spirituality, and how does that mean that I see other people? Because I think sometimes, in terms of your own understanding of spirituality, and that's why I said about appropriate use of self before, I think you have to appropriately understand that and what it means for you, and be really self-aware so that you're understanding the impact that it might have on others and what does it mean for others that you work with. Is that in summary?
Actually, it was in the oddest of places. It was in a conference for social work working with older people, and they were talking about the stages of faith. And up until then, I'd had a religious background that had ceased quite dramatically at one moment, and then following on from that, I assumed I'd lost my spirituality, lost my religion, lost my faith. And then when he was talking about the stages of faith, I thought, oh, I haven't lost anything, I've just moved on to a different stage. But I didn't recognise it as such because there's no framework at that stage, no structure. So I'd lost the structure, but I kept and had a greater spiritual experience. So you wouldn't normally expect to have that kind of enlightenment at a social work conference, but there it was.
When I started my journey for dance training in India, and that dance journey was my first spiritual experience, and that dance form is for like a God as our beloved. And when I started, we started like we are praying or Mother Earth before we stamp on the ground, and it was a beautiful journey for me, and I found myself there, and that made me a perfect human being, and it helped me throughout my life and until now. So that from there I found my own essence and my own spirituality.
It's a very personal thing. So I the words that are spirituality for me, really, I suppose that God is the most important word, and the peace and silence that come from that connection, and purity and happiness, and being complete and in a place of contentment. I think that's my experience of my own spirituality. That's what it's given to me. And I guess my greatest wish would be to be able to share that, the absolutely amazing silence that I've experienced with others. I'd love to be able to give it to the whole world.
Spirituality to me is what gives meaning to life. So it's about transcending the day-to-day into the purpose for living and the purpose for being and the purpose for doing what you do. And whatever that might be for you, that's what spirituality is, and it's different for different people. And yeah, the important part is the transcendence, I think, from just doing the dishes and talking to the kids at school and to a greater meaning.
I think the words have changed over time for me. I used to think about God, but I no longer think about God. That doesn't have any significance for me anymore. But I kind of think of divine spirit, or spirituality doesn't give me a peace like I know that it gives Wendy. Like it settles her soul and grounds her and takes her to a place that I'm quite jealous of. But but I think it's different for me in a sense. Like I think I feel spirit, and I feel spirit around me, and I think that it's kind of. I used to anchor my spiritual belief in a being or a essence like God, but I don't do that anymore. I think it's much wider now. It's a wider essence.
That's my whole journey, and I can articulate that, and I can see that now in this space, and I'm excited by that because I know it doesn't stop here. And wait for it, be careful what you ask for, because it's going to happen. And so I open myself to that, knowing that God has a plan for me. I don't know what that plan is, but I'm quite happy just to go along with that plan and see where it takes me. I might be sitting here today thinking, oh great, I'm going to be a kayako, I'm going to do this, but God might say, no, I'm going to take you somewhere else. Great, where's that going to be? Let's go, let's do it. Fine.
I guess it's that thing about core and essence, being grounded.
Tino rangatiratanga and finding out. I think it just goes part and parcel with it, because that's about the integrity of us. That's about our self-determining ourselves and knowing ourselves. It's more about knowing ourselves and where that integrity comes from. Who creates that space for us to have that integrity? And that's my God.
Hold true, for there is your spirit in all things. Your words sing you into this place, this being here, and this longing to be. This world is song. Sing with me. Listen to your words. Remember your way to the space and place where the human heart is healed and nourished. The stillness in the centre of time, the hub of a wheel where there lies ecstasy. the place you come into understanding of your soul as a friend. Be with me to see the thistledown seed fly by. Listen, that tui calls to us over the flowering tree, and here there is nourishment within the kindness of shared words from strangers. Attend to the crinkle, the laughter from teacups, marking the end of a long night. You belong, that you are that diaphanous divinity, eternal as the everyday, the hand on the shoulder of those in pain, the arm who lifted the figure from the nails, you gently assuring the broken that in time new life will flourish. Hold true, sing with me.
As I said at the beginning, for me, to be able to donate that peace to everyone, to give peace and that silence, acceptance, all those things that meditation gives me, and that my relationship with a divine being, that relationship is so important to me, and it gives me everything. And so I do want to share it, but I'm not really allowed to share it. It's not always appropriate to share. And so it's quite a, there's a tension there of how far can I go? Oh, I can't overstep the mark. It's like walking on eggshells, really.
One of the strands, I can never remember the Eightfold Path. There's too many to remember. 8. One of them is making the right choice about your work. So if you believe you're a Buddhist and believe you're living a right life, but then you have a job that isn't serving any great purpose, that maybe is a selfish choice, then that to me doesn't fit. There's a mixed match there. So you have to make that right choice in your profession as well as every other choice that you make.
And I feel that I have some really deep and loving relationships with some of my clients. And I have a lot of fun. So I work with a lot of people who are sort of chronic mental health sufferers who've been in the system for years and who are, I was with a woman yesterday and I was thinking and talking with her about how far she's come. I can remember when she lived in this really horrible house, and now she's managed to clean everything up, and she's done a great job. And we were laughing about where she used to live and thinking how bad it was and how good things are now. And she's Baptist.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And I was going to say, but she's a lovely person, and I'll say it anyway. She's lovely. She's lovely. Yeah. And so, yeah, she's moved forward. And I just have a lot of admiration for her because I know that life has been so difficult for her. So, yeah, I don't know how one does. It's a kind of, I think spirituality is who I am. I think it's so absolutely seminal to who I am. I can't remove it from my relationships with other people. So.
Yeah, I guess for me it's about trying to ensure that I can instill in students that the reason we're social workers, I believe, is because we have hope for people. Because if we don't have hope for change, why are we in social work? Like, for me, it's that simple. Like, I'm like, if you can't hope for people, why in the heck are you there? If you can't believe for difference for them, why? How are you doing what you do? I mean, it's hard work. I worked in care and protection, so that's hard work. And I guess people can get jaded and all those sorts of things. But I guess for me, that's the one reason I've held hope is because of my faith, really, that I know that there's an ultimate hope, and that my hope is different for other people. But I guess for me it's about instilling in the people that I educate that there's hope, that we see people as beings that can have hope in their lives. And sometimes that's really hard, but I think it just impacts. I mean, I'm kind of a glass half empty person normally. So I've done a lot of work in my social work practice around strength-based practice, and not ignoring what's not working, because that's not what strength is about, but actually approaching people with the fact that they've already got a strength and challenging myself to find that, whatever it is, and that I have always been able to find something, and trying to instill that in my students too. I think if I can do that, then I'm helping the people who need social workers, and that's what I love about my job now, is that I get to hopefully instill that in social workers who then go out and work with people, that there's hope.
In the previous job I've had, it was really quite strong. I worked with Māori families, and a lot of Māori families are deeply in touch with their spirituality and their kaupapa and their Māoriness and who they are as people. And I always really enjoyed working with Māori families in this particular job, because it wasn't always particularly easy, but it was always rewarding, and I learnt something, the families learnt something, and together we kind of worked together. And I think spirituality was very important to them. And I've worked with Tongan families where you can't start a meeting without having a prayer. And first of all, it's about establishing who the spokesperson is, and then starting with a prayer, and then going forth. And I think that actually, Pacifica and Māori families, they have a process, and sometimes I think meetings get lost and stuff doesn't happen in social work because protocol's not followed. And I think that sometimes it's just remembering to do the important stuff, that's very basic and very sort of securing, but it secures the process. So, yeah. And I think you are who you are as a person, and I think that you can try and make yourself be all sorts of things that other people think you should be. And everyone has nobody's perfect, everyone has their glitches. But I think that once you kind of accept who you are as a person, then and come to peace about who you are, then I think you become a much better social worker, because you know who you are, and you can sit with someone, and especially if someone's like really distressed or something, which is often what happens in Wendy's and our work, people are quite distressed about things. You can sit with them and be quiet. And just let them cry, or let them talk about it and listen, because you don't feel you need to interrupt, because you want them, you need to fill the silence. And I think that learning to sit with silence is a good thing, and not having to say stuff all the time, because I think sometimes when people are in distress, they just want to let it out, and they just want to talk about it, and they want someone to listen, and they don't particularly want helpful hints or tidbits. They just want someone to go, that really sucks, or that's really bad, and I'm really sorry that happened to you, or something like that, and just listen. And I think sometimes spirituality is a very basic thing, and it can be incredibly complex, but it's also incredibly basic, and it just depends what level you need with certain people, and where people are.
One of the things that we do when we become competent social workers, if we go through NZSW, is they ask you why you became a social worker. What was the event in your life that led you to becoming a social worker? And when I was asked that question, I was surprised it was in there, and going back and reflecting on what led me to that. And I think everyone gets that same question, so they'd have to think about what led them to that decision. And I think we have to keep reminding ourselves, what was the reason we chose this work? Because it's not particularly well paid, it's not always rewarding, we don't always see the results. It can be challenging, can be frustrating, can be downright at times. but to remind yourself why you're here and why you're doing this and what led you to that choice is what keeps you in a place where you can continue to do it and continue to give. Yeah, and having those conversations with other people, other social workers.
Karma, there are in Indian mythology, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma means duty. Dharma, artha means you do, your performance of your duty. Dharma, artha, kama. Kama is also, and then you achieve liberation at the end. So these four Vedas and Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So that also helps Indian mythology, help me to express myself in front of any woman and enable them to find their own essence. So these few things like Mahatma Gandhi's words and Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, theory of karma, there's all kind of learnings made me very, very powerful and strong. So when I work with women, I also carry this energy with me. And when I speak, when I express myself, so they also get that vibration that from me. So that energy make them strong and enable them to what they want in their life in future. So that's me.
And I'm asked this question quite often, is that as a Christian woman, as a spirited woman, how do you share the message of God? How do you get out there? I'm not an evangelist. I'm not someone that has a ministry in doing sermons. I'm not, these different gifts that each one has within the church environment. And I'm not any of those. And all I say is, I know myself and I lead by example. And if you catch that, great.
On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the grey window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colours, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the curragh of thought, and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the oceans be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.